Hello, this is a recording of the presentation delivered at the community meetings for the 2045 LRTP. My name is Ryan Wilhite, and I will be providing you with an overview of the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan moving us forward. The Long Range Transportation Plan is a product of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization, a federally required transportation planning agency that conducts planning for the 8-county area of central Indiana. The map on the screen shows the borders of the metropolitan planning area, the area designated the MPO to conduct transportation planning. As an MPO, we are required to conduct a comprehensive, cooperative, and continuing transportation planning process in order to distribute and program federal transportation planning dollars for the MPA. The Indianapolis MPA, shown here, includes 40 public agencies like cities, towns, counties, and 1.5 million people. In the yellow is Madison County, which is the MPA, the Anderson MPA, and that planning is done by the Madison County Council of Governments. So what is a long-range transportation plan? Long-range transportation plan usually has about a 20 or 30-year planning horizon. We're required to review it every 4 years to make sure all that our planning assumptions are up to date, and we should include at a minimum projected transportation demand of persons and goods. We also need to look at the existing and proposed transportation facilities with an emphasis on facilities that serve important national and regional functions. And the long-range transportation plan really looks at the type of expansion projects that are needed to accommodate forecasted growth in the region. These types of projects include expanded roadways, and new and expanded transit facilities. Smaller projects like the roundabouts, trail projects, and etc. Are usually funded either through local money or through federal dollars using a local match, and usually is not, those types of projects are not included in a long-range transportation plan. So where is Central Indiana? As far as growth, Central Indiana's got about 2 million people. That's the full 8-county, 9-county area with about 1.25 million jobs. And we've seen in the last 10 to 14, from 2010 to 2014, we've seen reasonably robust population growth of 4% and a pretty good job growth percentage of 8%. When we conduct a long-range transportation planning process, we do a lot of technical work to understand how people move and why people move. And the next couple slides are really snippets of some of the technical work that we've done. You can find more examples of that work on our webpage going to the LRTP 2045 page. On this map, you can see the percentage of workers commuting county to county, and you can see that the arrows represent kind of the higher percentage. So the thicker the line, thicker the arrow, the higher the percentage. We're seeing a continued significant amount of commuters that are going from their home county into Marion County. When we actually look at the numbers of commuters, we're seeing a significant percentage, a significant number of commuters from Hendricks, Johnson, Hamilton County going into Marion County. And you can also see a real strong exchange between Marion and Hamilton County as far as the number of commuters. When we look at the employment numbers, we also see from 2001 to 2013, while we've had a growth in jobs, you can see that the share of jobs by county has actually changed. Hamilton County, Hendricks County, we're seeing a higher share of jobs in those counties, and Marion County seeing a decrease. You can see some of that in new construction projects in Hamilton and Hendricks County, adding new jobs and new offices, new warehouses in those counties. So a key part of the long-range plan is looking at where we'll be at the end of the long-range plan. And we're forecasting that we're going to add 700,000 residents and approximately 700,000 jobs as well. And it's a pretty good growth in residents of about 1% a year, and a pretty good growth of jobs of about 2% a year. So how are we going to accommodate that growth? And that's a big part of long-range transportation plan, trying to figure out the transportation methods to accommodate this growth as the public wants us to accommodate it. So as part of our vision for accommodating it, we developed some goals, objectives. They are organized into 4 different categories. Move, which is all about providing choices for people to access homes and jobs and services. Prosper, all about how strategic investments in infrastructure can increase our competitiveness and affordability as a region. Make Safe, which looks at the different factors of a transportation network that revolve around safety. So the number of fatalities, number of serious injuries, what the condition of the roads are. And then finally, Sustain, which is all about how we can use transportation to improve the health of the environment and the residents of Central Indiana. One key focus nationally has been understanding how transportation investments manifest themselves. So what do they look like? What does this project give us that another might not? And so that idea really is behind with performance measures. So performance measures help us track these different metrics, these different numbers and ideas of a system that we think are important. I'm not showing all of them here. Our handouts have all of them listed, but I've got a few examples here. Transit ridership per capita, number of bridges in poor condition, for instance. Some of these are federal, so we're required to look at these because we receive federal dollars for funding as an agency. But some of them are regional, so the things that our steering committee has believed is very important to look at and to understand how that number is tracking, that trend, that measure is tracking. As part of the process, we've been guided by and listened to a lot of different individuals. We've been guided by our 2045 LRTP steering committee. This is comprised of individuals who sit on the Indianapolis Regional Transportation Council. The IRTC is the governing body for, the policy committee is the governing body for the Indianapolis MPO, and that body is made up of elected officials and town managers, engineers and planners from across the region. As part of this planning process, we've also engaged land use planners from across the region to understand how land use will be changing. And then we've conducted 2 or 3 different touch points for public input. At the beginning of the process, we looked at goals and objectives. And we did a transportation preference survey, and we're conducting these community meetings. I wanted to touch a little bit more on the transportation preference survey. So one of the things we asked was about transportation attitudes. And this survey looked at a few different things, a few different concerns that you might have: a level of disrepair, cost, lack of public transit. And we really see that the big concern is the condition of roads and bridges, so that maintenance concern. And this is something that we've seen in other surveys that we've done. It continues to be a driver of what we're doing. We also asked respondents to provide us with a breakdown of how they would spend money. And so you can see from this pie chart, most people, many of the respondents talked once again about preservation, fixing and maintaining roads. But for the expansion was actually split pretty evenly between modes. So building and enhancing infrastructure for peds and bikes, improving mass transit, and building and or widening roads was another one as well. The long-range transportation plan looks at all available funding for these major projects. Since the plan itself doesn't actually fund any projects, it's all about how agencies with money will spend that money. So how does this funding work? What we do is we look at the existing sources of funding: federal and state gas tax, wheel taxes, impact fees, property taxes, and we understand, we apply a growth rate to them and forecast out how much money will be available for our agencies to spend on transportation. The next thing we do is we see how much they should allocate to these different categories. So pavement preservation, bridge preservation, operations and maintenance, road expansion. We look at road expansion closely because most of the projects in the plan are expanded roadways that our communities have put forth. And so we say, here is the large pot of money that we have, and here's what road expansion, what our communities have said they think should be done. And so it's about 25% of available transportation funding allocated to road expansion. So getting a little bit more into the weeds, we divide the plan into 3 different time periods, kind of the immediate, medium, and long range. The more immediate projects, the 16 to 25, include those that are under construction or already committed to, or our policy committee is already committed to. Those in the outer years are all about accommodating that growth that our communities are expecting to see in those years. As the projects will develop, those that are seeking federal fund will apply to the MPO for funding at some point. The MPO is given a small pot of money that we use to fund projects that local agencies submit to us, and that's something that we look at as well. So how does the LRTP, how does that relate to all the other work the MPO does? And the MPO does some other work. Really, the LRTP sets the regional transportation goals and objectives. So all the other planning work that we do looks to the LRTP, the goals and objectives, to see what that plan, what that project should be looking at. The first one I want to talk about, and just kind of go a little high level here, is the Transportation Improvement Program, which is our short-range programming document. This lists all those federally funded projects in a 4-year period. And the current one is from 18 to 21. The TIP will follow LRTP budget allocation and goals and objectives to really help determine MPO-controlled federal allocation. The next product that we have would be almost all other planning efforts, and that would include freight planning, bicycle planning, PED planning, if we do TOD planning, anything of that nature. We really look towards the goals and objectives to make sure that planning document is referencing it and supporting it. LRTP recommendations may also support or inform planning efforts to be conducted in the future. The last thing is the Unified Planning Work Program, which is our budget and essentially outlines the work that we do, and that will be driven by recommendations or planning efforts that look to the LRTP for guidance. The last thing I want to really talk about as far as the process goes is how the roadway project screening process actually works. So we get a project call, we give a project call to our local agencies to say, based on your planning efforts, what do you think your communities need? So we get all these projects in. In this particular slide, 1, 2, 3 is supposed to be the LPA, or the local public agency like a town or a city, and project A, B, C, D, E are just representative. We get all these projects in, and then we develop a criteria to understand which one of these projects is most regionally significant. And that's what we want to be able to prioritize as a region so that it's generating the type of network that we'd like to see. Then we determine the available money. I already talked a little bit about that. And then that gives us the list of projects that we would like to see constructed within as part of the plan. You'll see this thing called illustrative projects. Those are projects that we either don't have money for, or they're projects that we think won't be built within the time period. So those are projects that right now aren't actually part of the plan, but they could be if we found additional money. So how can you help us out? So we've got a comment sheet, and we'd like for you to give us some response about connectivity issues, about delay that you see, any trends that we've identified that really think fit you and or could fit you, and how you live. And then lastly, like, what would you like to see us study? As a planning agency, we do a lot of studies every year, and so we'd like to understand a little bit more, maybe something you'd like to see us research more moving forward. In conclusion, thank you so much for attending and listening to this presentation. You can find out more information about the 2045 LRTP on our website, and you can check out the MPO on Facebook. Thank you very much, and hope to see you at a meeting or hope to hear from you through our contact us links on our website.